Hello and a big welcome to tonight's conversation. We're really glad to see so many of you here tonight for this Gotcha for Life Mentally Fit Schools webinar about how we can all manage our emotions a little better, connect with our children, and learn how to lean on our village for support. My name is Belinda Elworthy. I'm the CEO at Gotcha for Life, and I'll be your host for this call this evening. I'd like to begin with an acknowledgement of country. Gotcha for Life acknowledges the traditional custodians on the land on which we live, work, and connect on this evening. We honour the strength and resilience of First Nations peoples and their profound practices in community care and healing. And we pay our respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Now, I'd also like to extend a really special welcome to all of the parents who are joining us tonight from our mentally fit partner schools. It's really great to see so many people on the call tonight. So during this session, we'll be exploring some practical ways to build your mental fitness so you can feel more in control, whilst also strengthening the connection that you have with your kids. We'll take a look at how parental expectations have shifted and also what hasn't changed when it comes to what our kids really need. Tonight, we'll be listening to a presentation followed by a conversation about some of the key questions we often get asked by parents. We'll aim for tonight's session to go for around 45 minutes. And please be aware that this webinar is being recorded and will be made available afterwards. Now, all of our participant videos and microphones are turned off, so don't worry about that either. Now, depending on time, there may be an opportunity for Q&A at the end of our session. So if you do have questions, please pop them into our Q&A box in the chat. And if you experience any technical difficulties, please try exiting and re-entering the webinar. And if that doesn't work, you can reach out to our team via email, schools@gotchaforlife.org, and we will try to assist you as quickly as possible. Okay, the housekeeping is out of the way. So if
At least you don't have to tell them where the toilet is. It's so good.
I know. Now, if there's one person I wish I could have on speed dial during the roller coaster of family life, it's Maggie Dent. I'm a mum to 3 sons, and in our house, my husband and I often find ourselves asking, what would Maggie do? Especially in those moments when our kids have pushed every one of our buttons and we're trying to hold on to a sense of calm. Maggie's voice is always steady, wise, and full of compassion, with the occasional F-bomb. And she's often helped us shift from reacting to responding, and at times even from complete frustration to connection. Maggie has a remarkable gift for helping parents to cut through the noise. She reminds us that perfection is not the goal, but connection is. And as an advisor to Gotcha for Life and a passionate advocate for mental fitness, Maggie brings both heart and science and a lifetime of experience to the way we understand and walk beside our kids. Tonight's conversation couldn't come at a better time, as a few of us are crawling towards the end of term. I know that many families are running on empty, kids are tired, patience is thin, and expectations from all directions can start to feel pretty overwhelming. That's why tonight we're diving into a conversation we all need: how to better manage expectations, truly understand and connect with our kids, and remember that we don't have to do this alone. We all have a village, and leaning in isn't a weakness, it's wisdom. So it's my absolute pleasure to welcome someone who has supported thousands of families, including mine, through the messy, beautiful journey that is parenting, the queen of common sense herself, Maggie Dent.
Oh, Belinda, what a gorgeous welcome. And thank you. And I'm, super excited to be a part of this. You know that I champion Gotcha for Life right behind the scenes and will always continue to do so, because your key mission is, of course, is to make sure that we can make suicide a non-existent thing in our world. So I am glad, and to any parent who's, I'm just chuckling away as to who has just got out of putting the kids to bath and bed because they're listening to this. Isn't that funny? And I do hope you've got a glass of wine. I want to just start on, the shift in parenting. So I'm really, really old, and my oldest is 44 and my youngest is 36. And parenting was still unpredictable when I was a parent. And I think sometimes we forget toddlers are toddlers. You know, they're meant to bite, they throw things, they scream when they don't get me. That is really healthy and normal, and yet as annoying as hell. So when you've got multiple age children, each age and stage often comes with a unique challenge. And so there's nothing wrong with our children. It's just that when they do it, oh man, we feel like we're failing.
Mm.
And also, especially in a public space, you know, like when that meltdown happens in the aisle in, you know, Woolies or Coles, and you feel like everyone's judging me right now. And that's part of today's problem. I feel the world has become more judgy on parents, and it happens online. I know that there's a lot of pressure if you see perfect images of neat, tidy, beautifully behaved children online. You're going to think, well, what about mine? My boys were naked most of the time when they were home, so I didn't really have a problem with that. So I'm going to just reassure you all that raising little ones is hard work. If you've got a few of them, and if you've got rooster children, the highly spirited, energetic ones, that's a whole new extra challenge. And that's why, you know, at different times, I just want to reassure you all that there are days it's going to work okay and you think, nailed it, finally worked out how to be a good enough parent, you know, and the next day you do exactly the same thing and it just goes to crap. And you haven't failed. You've got unpredictable humans in your home who have immature brains. So always keep that in mind. It's probably developmentally completely appropriate, but equally as frustrating and annoying. And there are times we can love our kids and be really sick of them. And it doesn't mean you're a lousy parent. It just means welcome to this crazy window. So there's so many, I'm going to couple of pages that I think has tipped our parents over into even more things than we obviously didn't have the digital world. We didn't have, you know, the whole, you know, TV screens that are really big that, you know, have wonderful things like Netflix that we want to stay on instead of going to bed. There's a whole lot of things that have made it even harder to be a present parent, because that's actually what our kids need. Remember, number one is the secure attachment of a minimum of one safe adult. And that research is so strong that I think when they have a meltdown, we'll think, oh my gosh, have I broken the attachment? Or when I can't get them to bed, or when I'm trying, you know, to fix up something that's just been broken, you will think, oh gosh, I've shouted at them once or twice, or I've just got really cross. That doesn't break attachment. Secure attachment is a really deep embedded thing, and it's really something I want to reassure you all, because I also want tonight to remind you that your kids need to be doing more and you need to be doing a little less, because I find in this world of I want to make my kids happy all the time, that's just a ridiculous thing to try to do, and that we need to be okay with them having those big moments, because when they have big moments of disappointment, when they have big moments of not getting what they want, they're learning how to deal with that while they're little. And as they get older, they get better at that. And that means that when they get to NAPLAN, or napalm as I call it, they can handle a little bit better. But can you see, the more stressed we are in our modern world, the less likely we've got a lot of energy in our tank to be able to navigate all the things that can be really tricky. Now, on the phones, you have to have a phone to navigate parenting today. We didn't even have one. I got one note in my oldest son's bag with what was happening at school for 4 boys. And you can have like a million messages going on, and each class has a different app or two, and then you might want to find out when sport is, and so you've got WhatsApp groups for that, and there's 58,000 people on that, and you want to find out if it has it been cancelled or it hasn't, and ordering their lunch and checking. It's enormous. So it's really important that you need it to navigate that life, but you've really got to be mindful of, am I looking at it when I don't need it for those things? So 2 tips from my beautiful friend, Dr. Christy Goodman. If you can hide the phone when you're around your children, you're less likely to pick it up to check it. And 2, turn off your alerts, right? And then when you use it, say, look, this is what I'm doing with the phone. I'm actually ordering your lunch, okay? Or I'm ordering a doctor's appointment. Let them know what you're doing so they don't just think you're escaping them. So that's a really important message as we go forward in this space. So one of the things we need to recognize, and this has been updated just today, is that many of our children are turning up into our school systems. This is 5-year-olds, the Australian Early Development Census. The previous census in 2021, the national average was 22% of our kids turning up with more of these vulnerabilities, and now it's gone to 23.5. And my biggest gripe is the fact that we have our children turning up less prepared, less resilient, and yet they're getting a school system that's pushed down cognitive learning even earlier and stolen childhood. So I'm a big advocate for that. These three things, if you've got younger children, be really mindful that that gross and fine motor skill, they're meant to be moving their body, hanging their body, falling out of trees, falling over steps and rocks, because that helps build up all these other things, which actually isn't just about the body, it's about how well the brain can learn in our classrooms. We've got children falling out of chairs because their bodies aren't fine enough. They can't hold a pencil. So that's get them off the couch. We know they're turning up with less vocab, so please keep reading to your kids, keep talking to them in the supermarkets, keep listening to them, keep singing badly, because the more marination with language, the better they are able to transition into school. Many of them are not playing enough, and many of the kids that we've actually currently got in primary school are COVID kids. We must prioritise play because that's a really important to develop the social skills you need to be a friend. And the last one, we are turning up with less regulation skills, which means they do melt down a lot more often. So those things, I believe, can be avoided just in the first 5 years of life. We're still prioritising how we need to raise children by letting them play with as many other children of multi-ages, of all genders, in environments with potential risk. There's the recipe. Why is that so important? As soon as an adult steps back, an older child will automatically step forward and become responsible. It's biologically wired in them. Those opportunities for responsibility means they start checking out for risks, and they can't. It's a really important thing that many kids don't do anymore. And younger children are more likely to learn off what the actions of older children are. They watch the words they use to solve problems. They watch them climb. So again, we need to find these spaces again and return them back into neighbourhood play if possible, because so often they only play with their own age group. You're not breeding enough either, because we had a lot of cousins in the old days. So that's another reason things are a bit different. So this is my building blocks that I created, how we build resilient, happy kids. And it's a strength building model, and every single child might need a different way of how do I build that strength in them. And it's I'm not going to go through all 10 because that's a 2-hour seminar, but I've picked out a few that I think is a great reminder for us as we go forward. So there is a handout that I hope Belinda will be able to email with you with the link for the catch up, so that you're able to share that. There's also tons of stuff this on my website for free. So once again, going back to that one, the number one thing that our kids need is this minimum of one. And I just have to take my hat off to you. I just see this everywhere I go. I see our dads are stepping up with big open hearts, which is also, unbelievably important. It's the biggest social shift we have. They're turning up because they want to be a better dad. They want to be a loving dad. And thank goodness to Bluey, who's giving us lots more tips on how to do that. But I think what we've got now is we've got more parents who are wanting to be not so much equal, because it's really tricky to be equal, but they want to co-parent and be a team. So team parent is incredibly important. So in this window, of course, the more time you can spend in loving moments with your children, the more you're going to build that sense of connection. But I am going to say we're busy. There's a million things we're doing, and more parents are working longer hours to survive. So I'm going to suggest that these little micro moments actually really add up and fill that love cup just as much as the other things. So what do you do when you leave the house in the morning? Is it just everyone races for the door? Do you have a welcoming or farewell ritual? And I'm a really big one on the bedtime ritual. Those who've heard me speak will know you can't do it every night of the week, because some nights you're just too grumpy, right? So of course I love you to the moon and back. Go to bed. No, that doesn't work. So when you're in a loving, calm space, it's how much do I love you? And when our kids hear that as they go to bed, it can really make them feel in a really calm state. They're really safe. They're really loved, and they can fall asleep easier. So I love you more than every star in the night sky. I love you more than every grain of sand on every beach in the whole wide world. I love you more than all the hairs on all the bears. Whatever ritual you have, please do it as often as you can, because it embeds really deeply into our children to make them feel safe and secure. One of my granddaughters said to me recently, she loves me more than the bacteria in the world. Must be a lot of bacteria. So another one that's really good about building connection in homes, because siblings are supposed to fight and they will fight. Anyone who's got boys like Belinda will know it's endless wrestling or endless whatevering. And that's not always bad, but siblings are meant to have conflict. This is because they're humans and they're learning about human relationships. Now, if you can print some of the photos off your cloud, that would be a great idea, and put them in your toilet of moments of loving connection with siblings. Because if they run to the toilet to escape, they're often they see the photos and they immediately remember about love. So I think it's a really important thing that we can build those things around the edges. Put all those things up. There's tons of these on here. And there's a couple of articles online, but it's about how do I keep connection? Little bits add up to big bits. The next one's the play. I am going to tell you that our kids are not moving enough either. So play is actually when they move their bodies. And when we have fixed playgrounds, they learn to only move at certain distances. Their brain needs uneven surfaces. They need to be doing all sorts of things. So movement is a really big part of why play matters. We've got to get them off the couches. The second thing is they will interact, the social skills that they learn, and that's exactly part of what Got Your Health Life thing. If you haven't got social skills, you're not going to make friends. If you don't have friends, you're going to have problems socially and emotionally on all sorts of levels. And we need them to have some risk. And I once again, it's no parent wants their child hurt. But what we're finding is that kids who have been overly protected from any risk, in adolescence, they can't take the risks that are needed to become an adult. So we've got to allow those moments. And this is one of the things I want to talk to you about. It's almost like you need to have a concept of benign neglect. So I'm just going to let them run feral and free, but I'm within an earshot, if anything goes wrong. Or I'm going to be really brave. If they really want to walk home from school, when I'm going to prepare them, we're going to do the trek. I'm going to let them do it one day a week and then gradually build up their skills. So in other words, it's about building capacity in our kids. One of the other things with the epidemic of anxiety, we've got to let our kids take themselves to the edge of their own fear, even if we are still frightened. It is what they're biologically wired to do. So that's why we want them hanging off ropes. This is in Kings Park in Western Australia. It's a beautiful, we've got fabulous playgrounds in Western Australia. So if you haven't got enough here, this was also built by a loving dad. His kids had left this primary school, but he wanted to come back and build this because he wanted to say thank you. Look at it. He was there for hours. Unbelievable. So this is in Canada, my last trip to Canada. Look how boring the playground is. That's exactly what they are. There's hardly anything dangerous in Canada or America. And then this is what we have. We have feral monkey bars, which are fantastic for all of that gross and fine motor skills. Guess what else it's good for? No one conquers it early on because it takes ages and you've got to fail a lot. So it's really good for us. Loose parts. Kids have got to be able to shift stuff around. We don't want everything fixed because it's about autonomy in the brain. And sometimes just got to close our eyes and hope they're okay. So again, there's a whole list of these things, but I want to touch on this last one. We need our kids to learn to lose in real time. And please, let's not have any more pass the parcels with only one prize. We've got to only one prize. We've got to let them go, oh, I didn't get a prize. We need those moments because that's how they learn to be emotionally buoyant later. If they've never had those moments, everything gets harder. So the other thing is frustration tolerance. Allow your children to be really frustrated because that's how they get better at navigating it. I mean, there's a few adults who need that, don't they? Your next one is a really interesting one. I want you to look at what can I do that puts sparkles into my children's eyes of any age. And I think there's a whole lot of these things that you'll see every now and then, the connection to nature, having awe and wonder, going out to look at the full moon, going to explore things together, builds this sense of hope in a world that's a bit dark at the moment. So there's lots and lots of these things. If you can nurture their sense of humor, because we know that helps them to have a better relationship with themselves and with others. But look at all the things. And the big one on this is, as a parent, good enough is enough. And around about 30 to 40% of the time that you're good enough, you can raise great kids. No need for perfection, as Belinda said. Put the stick down that you're beating yourself up with because that didn't work, or your house is too messy, or no, you've got children. Lower the bar on your expectations. It's too much for you. And then finding the tribe. That's not always as easy today in our busy world. But I am going to say, just check in with who your kids are hanging out with a bit. and make opportunities to meet at the park or to, hang around after soccer or something. Little moments of, those sorts of things we actually do need to rebuild our village, which I say sometimes is a tribe. Just think, if your car broke down on the way to school tomorrow, who could you text who could pick your kids up? That not only do kids know are safe, the school knows they're safe, and you know they're safe. Do you have anyone? And if not, start building that, because we can build it. It just might not be who you thought you were going to build it with. So again, we absolutely need that tribe. And then just remember, if you've got tweens and teens, The Role of a Lifetime is out there and you can watch it with them. The Good Enough Dad, as I said before, the podcast for dads, which I'm absolutely loving. Finally, that last message, every single child is a one-off, absolutely unique, never here before, never here. There's no parenting book written about that child. And your job is not to shape that child how you think they should be. Your job is to allow that child to grow and support them with the environment they need to become who they really are. So instead of being a carpenter who carves it out, we be a gardener. That's it. Every single child's going to have unique challenges and gifts, and don't just focus on their challenges. Seriously, let's just keep on knowing that this unique miracle is up to us to shape it, to bring it into the real world. And those of you who haven't caught my stuff, you can find me online. And I want one last tip here on terms of how do you cope. My hat goes off to every solo parent out there, because that is super hard work. But I also have met a lot of solo parents whose kids have learned to step up because they knew they needed to help mum or dad out. So can you see, it's not always a bad thing. Those of you who are co-parenting, my biggest tip to survive this journey, not only do you hide really good fruit and nut chocolate in the bedroom for those moments when everything goes a bit smuck, is that prioritize an hour and a half, each of you, each week, for something that fills your cup. And we prioritize that before we prioritize all the kids' stuff. Because what we know is when mum and dad have or mum and dad have a full cup, our kids benefit and we survive this tricky journey just so much more. So there you go. How did I go? Is it nearly that amount of time?
You did it perfectly, Maggie, right on time. And honestly, there's just so many moments in what you've shared that resonated with me, and I know would have sparked a thought in so many people on the call. And I think, one of the things in being a parent is so many of us take our role so seriously,
Yes.
that we are so hard on ourselves. I mean, parenting was never a role until recently.
It was never a verb.
No, it was never a verb. It wasn't something you performed. There were parents, there were kids, and we all kind of just hope to get through it together.
Yeah,
But it's now a thing.
that is exactly right. And I'll tell you something else too, that weekend used to be adult sport and the kids all just hung around while their parents played sport. And what is it now? It's just weekends full of kids sport. And
Yeah.
I think that other thing in terms of, there used to be not much information. So now there's like too much. And I'm sorry if I contribute to that. But and then we think there will be just something I haven't learnt yet that will fix that and make it go away, like one size fits all. And that's why, no, there's not. That's why so often my work, I'm going to say, well, what are these are some of the things that might work in that moment. And sometimes we're just going to have to sit down and go, it's just hard.
Yeah.
And it's just hard right now. And I think our end of term, and so what happens, our nervous system gets overloaded, Belinda, and that's one of the things I think we're beginning to understand a lot better. And it's a key message that it's called the body budget, basically interoception. So all of us are navigating how much energy we've got in our body with what we eat and what we drink and how we sleep and what we do. Now, grown-ups have an executive brain, so we're able to go, gee whiz, I might need a snack now. I might need to just chill out for a bit. Or our children, our adolescents can't do that. So often towards the end of term, their energy cup is even lower. And yet so often there's more things that happen. Like you only have to have 2 birthday parties on a weekend towards the end of term after they've played soccer or netball or whatever they've done at the end of a week. And you're going to have kids that are really going to be grumpy because they haven't picked up their towel and they're not eating their dinner and why they haven't done their homework. And I want to sort of wind back a little and go, hang on, I think we need to just be a little kinder around here. So there's two things that work when our kids are in that space. And that's just validating how hard it's got. And even I'm a bit grumpy and I'm sorry. But let's go towards choose kindness, no question. Choose kindness, choose light moments of joy. And that means sometimes just grab the ice cream out.
Yeah.
Like just get it out, sit on the floor, have a few bowls of that and regroup because it's not their fault they've run out of energy. It is exactly what happens as a product of living today with the end of term. And as a former teacher, even I was cooked.
Mm.
Uh, and then we only need one or two things that are going to push us over the edge. So I think we have to recognize this, that last thing again is get more and more ridiculous the more exhausted you get. Sing
Yeah.
badly, dance badly. If you've got boys, you're going to need a few more well-timed farts. You're just going to have to lighten up a lot because laughter discharges the cortisol out of our body, the same as tears and screaming. So it's
Yeah.
a way better way to do it. But to be able to just validate it for kids, gee, we're all getting a bit tired, aren't we? Did you hear me how I said that? That wasn't very cool, was it? Let's just validate. This is because we're all tired and we're all feeling the same, but let's be a little more loving in that space.
Yeah, I think, and in so many ways it's us as parents starting to learn and notice that you can feel that fire in your belly when they've said that, and being able to just try having a laugh with it is just
Yeah,
such a powerful way to diffuse something. And
exactly.
it's modeling to our kids that this is
Yep.
another option of when things start to get a
Yeah.
bit heated.
And I think we can actually adjust the energy level of our kids as well. But and I'm sure some people have noticed that they might have siblings that go off to play, and yet around 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, it all goes to crap, right? And that's because sometimes one child loses energy, the other one, builds it up because they're not being active enough. And it's just there's roughly a certain time frame, and that you need to listen to the change in the voices. And so for me, house full of boys, if I could hear that voice changing and sounding like someone's going to get a bit poopy, I just whip on down there and open that door and say, "Come on, guys, outside for 5 minutes." Yep, I know. I don't care who was saying what. I'm not going to go down as the executioner and the judge. I'm just going to move things
Yeah.
around. I used to obviously have to take food as well because it was boys. But in those days, I could just go down and with some cut up fruit. There was nothing fancy. Like, oh my God, the snacks today is a whole new learn. And
Mm.
then 5 minutes later, I go to let them in. They've got a new game going. They want to come back in, right? So every now and then we can top them up with shifting on the activity or turning up and rubbing their hair or being, so we can lift up the energy in our children. I call it manipulation with love.
So true though.
Uh,
You can see the patterns in how they behave.
yeah,
And if you don't get in there, and I love that idea of topping them up and helping them shift to that
yeah,
new
yeah.
state.
But don't ever take them to the shopping centre after school, right? They're already depleted.
Yeah.
And if you've got boys, there's probably a poo that's due. So you're going to have a really agitated boy. He's probably hangry as well.
Mm.
So it's just, like at the end of the day, we're actually not attuning into what they're capable of doing well in. And we're putting them in an environment that's increasing their chances of that not well. I'm loving some of the schools, Belinda, that are now getting a coffee machine like 2 afternoons a week and letting the kids, everyone stay for an extra 45 minutes. I love it, right? What parent wouldn't like a coffee at 3 o'clock? But also, what's happening is those children are out there playing and diffusing all that tension they've had for a whole day at school.
Yeah.
And then everyone jumps in the car in a much better state. But we're also cultivating the social skills I was talking about. They're also moving around,
Yeah.
they're also in fresh air. All of the things that help to build a regulation that's better to go home with. I love it. And I love that there are some of those schools that are looking at those sorts of things and going, let's see if we can do some more building of community.
Yeah, and I think that, like you mentioned towards the end of your prezzo, that idea of connecting in with your village and just that shared experience of other adults who are going through this stage of life. And it can be a bit confronting if you are more of an
Yep.
introverted personality.
Yep.
Um, but
Oh,
that village is, it becomes everything. And, you know,
yeah.
even
So I had a group in a school in Western Australia that had actually gone into a big project to build a nature playground. So a lot of the parents got to meet during all the busy bees, and some of the dads who, thought they had friends and everything. When they were doing this work on that, they actually figured out that guy's a fisherman, and we've actually got a new like in actual fact, we sometimes as females, we're way better at that sort of stuff. But what happened was some genuine friendships developed. And then another thing that this group was doing is they had a mini tribe. They're in year 3, all these kids. So they started to meet on Friday afternoons down at the local park. Now, I do think there was probably not just tea and coffee in those drinks. But what was really beautiful was that there were a number of neurodivergent children in that group of kids. And of course, they can really struggle with people they don't know and kids they don't know. So what they were actually doing, they were in a familiar environment with the same grown-ups and the same kids. And what they were doing is building up their ability to interact in those situations because it became more and more predictable for them. And I didn't realize it, because that wasn't part of my journey. And when they told me about how beautiful that was for them, and that those grown-ups are already a part of those kids' lives. So
Yes.
when they saw them at school for things like assembly, there was a connection between another adult and a child. And that is so important. So my biggest concern today, I think, we know that we've got, an epidemic of anxiety in our children, but we've got the most incredibly high numbers of lonely teens. Even though they're connected online, they're not connecting in real time. So you don't have conversation skills. You can't read facial expressions. You're less likely to, we've got teens who can't go and order coffee or buy a loaf of bread. That is really disturbing because as they go forward in life, they're going to hit into the need for pairing up and intimate relationships. Well, you're going to have a gap in how you do that because
Yeah.
you do need all of those things. And so I guess that's my other challenge is if, and some kids aren't into organized sports. So what am I doing with those kids? There will be some special interest group that will be great for your kid, but we let them help them figure it out and which one do they choose or whatever it might be. But yeah, so it's a really tricky thing that we've got kids who are lonely, who are going to school, but who are spending a lot of time online, who are just finding the world is just, they're not as connected.
Yeah. And I think, that idea of how can we as parents help build capacity in our kids? Because, we know that confidence builds with experience.
Yeah,
Once I've done it one time, I'm going to be more confident the next time. And it's that repeated
yeah,
exposure.
yeah.
What's
There's
your,
no question. So in around that, every now and then, and that's why sometimes, and it's often well-meaning mums, because they don't do a really good job when you ask them to sweep the floor, or they don't do a very good job with a chore. We'll say, I'll just do it myself and get it done better. But in actual fact, we're denying them those moments to do as well as they can do at that age. But we do know that the capacity building around life skills, those things like learning to ride a bike without trainer wheels and that conquering the monkey bar, they're what we call peak moments of experience. And you don't achieve it until you've fallen off and you've hurt yourself. And that's a really important journey, but it's the hardest thing as a parent to see your kid keep falling off a bike.
Mm,
You want to scoop them up and rescue them. And that's, I think, one of the hardest things we do. I don't want them to climb a tree in case they fall out. And that's that stepping back and letting them master it gradually. And we know for sure that that peak moment of experience actually sets them up for navigating towards further ones that are a goal that I have to strive for. So persistence and grit are things
mm,
that are not very pleasant, but they do need us not to yell at our kids saying, yeah, you just have to keep doing. I know it's hard, but you know what? Let's just do one more and see if that happens. And sometimes around the anxiety stuff as well, Belinda, often I find just get them to be a little bit braver.
yeah.
So, let them, if they're too terrified to go and play soccer because they're just too shy and they're scared of mucking up, we chat with the coach and see if they let them do it for 2 minutes,
Yeah.
just 2 minutes, and I'm here. And then next time we'll see if we do 3, because it's just that every now and then I'm going to help them just enough to go to the next level. And we know that self-mastery, so when they can do things for themselves, which is why chores are really important, why any endeavor, and it's as simple. Magnetic tiles and Duplo are such a big part of my nanny life, but I'm watching them now, like, after what they're building,
Yeah.
because they keep on going back and getting more and more creative and mastering it. And no adults helping them. So I think they're the opportunities that when we hand over devices, you're not doing that. You're not using your whole body in a creative way. So
Mm,
keeping that in mind, but also knowing there are some days you got to get dinner ready. Please stick him in front of the TV.
yeah.
because it's a
Absolutely.
whole different experience to a handheld device.
Yeah.
And if you've got boys, they're doing somersaults, aren't they, Belinda, while they watch Bluey? Like, holy heck. And also, they're moving their bodies, they're not stuck, their eyes are not fixed. There's a whole lot of things
Yeah.
that we need to make that is very different to a, handheld device.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Maggie, I'm just going to jump to a question that's come through. I have an 8, a 6, and a 4-year-old, and I struggle with trying to treat each kid individually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, I feel like I treat them like young adults, not like little kids. Any advice to help me lower the bar?
Yeah, that's a really good point. But I love the fact you said you treat them like adults. I hope you speak to them um, as though they can understand you too, because that's a really important thing, that there's a part of them that can understand it, even if they're not able to necessarily do it in that same moment. Okay, so what they say really is any opportunity that you can get where the 3 siblings can play together and have fun. All right. And you might have to orchestrate some of that, because obviously mine just love going to the beach and mine just love kicking balls around the backyard. What is that activity, and can you prioritize it at times? Because when our siblings have fun together, it actually builds less of conflict and less of jealousy between them, which is a really good thing to do. But you're also at different times celebrating something in each of them in front of each other. Like, I just amazing. Like, really, really, the way that you're able to be really patient with your little brother. I'm high five, dude. That was great. And it's those little moments of acknowledgement and celebration and noticing, positive noticing. Then they actually feel like they're not competing against each other. And also the other thing I did, which is hard to do nowadays, is I used to bring, the friendship dates when there was a play date. I'd try and get a few kids in at the same time, because they did tend to go off and do different things, but they all had a lot of fun together, and that cup was filled of, play and fun. And I think that's, at the end of the day, you can't do exactly the same for all of them. But every now and then we need to see if we can do that one-on-one stuff in whatever way it works for your child. And each child will like a different way of one-on-one. And we've got to figure out what that is, don't we? And see if we can nail it.
Yeah, and I think, it's not being hard on ourselves if we can't
Yes.
do that every day.
No. So one of the reasons that conflict happens as siblings is because they're actually competing for limited resources. There's no way any parent can meet the unique needs of each of their children, even if they only have one of them, 100% of the time. You just can't do it.
Yeah.
And you just be able to say, oh, no, I know that's what you wanted right now, and it's just not working right now because this is what we're doing. And maybe we'll be able to do that later. So we always land with a bit of hope.
Yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
and then, as I said before, the more ridiculous you are, the more fun we have together. That whole conflict bit, it'll still come around, especially towards the end of term.
And I love this concept, as someone who is a bit of a recovering perfectionist, and any parent wants to be the best parent they can be. How powerful can it be to shift our focus to being a good enough parent versus
Oh,
best parent I can be,
oh,
or
it's huge. And
perfect?
I feel, Belinda, the pressures on mums just so spectacularly, because it's almost like online you have to have spectacular eyebrows and lovely muscles and cook like a god, like a master chef, and have this spotless house that always, beautifully, tastefully. Well, if you've got children, like, mess is what kids do. So every now and then when I've got those sort of mums who say, I've got to have it tidy before I can feel comfortable. And I said, well, shut the door to a few more of the rooms so you can't see it,
Mm.
right? And just let it be. And it's the same as, being late with love. I keep saying some days, you've got it. And we all know how we do it. Like, we're working out before I get out of bed. If I get out at that time, I'll have time to do that, and I'll get that done, and I'll get that done. And then we should be able to get out there. And, like, it doesn't always go like that, because children, like, the time concept is really poor under 5 or 6, and then would prefer to be doing something else. And of course, then we go, yeah. So what I really want is is that some days I'm going to be that other 70% parent, which is not perfect.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm not going to scream at my kids for that. This is just a really tough day. And one of the tips I keep on saying is have these deep breaths, like 3 deep breaths every now and then, because it's going to be a sign for your kids that things are a little bit hard right now. And sometimes they might tell you as a mother, have 3 deep breaths. But when you are running late some days, I want you to let it be, I'm just late with love. So don't drive really fast because you're worried about the educator who's going to have you, or you're worried your kids are going to get dropped off at school and they're already supposed to be informed. No, no, this is what happens with humans who are raising little people. And as teachers on any level, we know that things can go down. That isn't what we planned. And we're not bad parents. We're just parents living from moment to moment with children who are unpredictable. And we're doing the best we can. And that's why that 30 to 40% is like gold, isn't it? To know that
Yeah.
that is what the research shows. And that when we're nailing it, it's not that we've got a perfect house. It's that we've got a warm, loving relationship with our kids and they feel loved and secure. That's the biggie.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've got to give ourselves a break. We've got to learn to give ourselves a break when it
Yeah.
comes to parenting and show ourselves the same grace we would show our mates, or if one of our
Yes.
friends called us and said,
Exactly.
I stuffed up today.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why I used to have these quiet cups of tea in the garden while everything was going down in the house. And I had the seat was right out near some flowers. I had a few little statues. It was my sacred safe space. And then after a period of time, I'd go out there to escape, and one of the boys was sitting in my chair. Oh, I thought, oh, I'll have to get another chair now. Like,
Yes.
like he
Found
thought it
me.
was a great idea.
Um, a question from someone, Maggie. We've only got a little bit
Yep,
longer, but I'm trying to pick some of these. And if we haven't tackled your questions, please know that the team and I will take them
yep,
away and we'll definitely consider how we can share more content on the topics that are coming up. Um,
yes,
there's a couple of questions here with parents who have only children who may
yep,
not get that,
yep.
the challenge of
I've
living in
got
a house with other kids.
great news for those who've got solo kids. The research is absolutely clear that you can raise exceptionally gorgeous humans who aren't entitled spoiled brats. And that's because the socialization actually in the early years happens with adults as well as children. So kids are being socialized with their relationships with safe grown-ups. And also they're going to be in school environments. Once again, they're going to be able to do things. So really, we need to relax around that because that was a bit of a myth that said, oh no, they're all going to be spoiled. What we tend to find is, yes, they often are a little bit more mature around the edges of certain things, but we also need to let them have moments of discomfort, even though they don't have to wait for anything. We still need them to, they don't get the bicky before dinner and it's a no. And so we're holding the same sorts of boundaries. They're the things that let our kids realize that's important. And yeah, so it's just one of those things. So the good news is the research says you can still raise healthy kids even if they are a solo child.
That's great. That is great news. And I think, I guess in wrapping up this conversation, um, if you could say, one last thing to parents who are in this incredible season of life, and we want to be present, we
Yep.
want to be good enough parents, but can sometimes feel overwhelmed. What would be your go-to when it's just feeling like, hang on a minute, I need to reset? What would Maggie do?
Yeah.
What would you say?
I think the first thing is constantly saying to yourself, look, no one's nailing parenting. They never have and they never will. And that really, the best that I can do on any given day is absolutely acceptable and okay. And that I think what we said before, when we lower that bar a little bit, but are you making memories that matter? And that's, if
Yeah.
you look at that, what are our kids going to look back to? Are they going
Mm,
to look back to the fact that they loved having a tidy house and that, do you know what I mean? Are they going to
yeah.
look back to, oh my gosh, remember the time we just watched family movies and ate popcorn and farted on the couch? Or do you remember the time we went camping? Do you remember the time we just put the sprinkler on outside and got naked and was silly? I want you to focus on, am I making memories that will matter well
Mm,
after I've gone and when they're grown up? Because that's when when your kids want to repeat some of the things that happened when they were children, right? They can handle those tough moments. They can handle moments when they didn't get what they want, but were there enough memories that really mattered?
mm.
That's exactly what we're creating in their memory bank. Did they know they were loved? Did they have memories that mattered? And we can all do that. We can start tomorrow if we had a crap day today.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going back to basics, isn't it? There's a lot
Yep.
of noise, a lot of things we think we should do, but I think going back to love, going back to kindness, and just having
Yeah.
that fully open heart with our kids, letting them know when we've stuffed up.
Yep.
And that's, I think it's important to let them know that,
I
you know,
think it's the repair and the rupture. That's what we didn't used to do in previous generations too. If we had that big moment, we
yeah,
can come back when everyone's calm and just go, wow, that was, gee, I was really stressed, wasn't I? I know the things, that's not really the mummy or daddy I want to be, so I'm going to try a bit harder. That, honest to goodness, it just diminishes the sense of what that might have been uncomfortable for the kids in that moment. And, you know, if you've got, your boys will forgive you instantly, the girls might save it up for later. But we do know that you can repair ruptures and you can reconnect and strengthen connection in terms of that
yes,
really
never
at
too late.
any single time. And I
Yeah,
think that's the one I keep reminding those who've got teens. You can keep that connection seriously at any time. Just step in with kindness,
yeah,
step in with compassion,
yeah.
because it's really hard to be a teen today. It's really hard to be a parent today. But when we go, oh, it's okay. Let's
Mm,
just get the ice cream out, eh? Let's get it
yeah.
out.
It's when all else fails, go back to connecting, right?
It is. It's about connecting.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Maggie.
My pleasure.
I just wanted to acknowledge in the corner of my eye, I've seen a few other questions come through
Yep.
about screens and
Yep.
devices, and it's a super hot topic. And
Yep.
I just don't think we could even do it justice
No.
tonight. But it is absolutely on our agenda at Gotcha for Life. And so, what I will say is, this is a topic that we're looking to tackle in future
Excellent.
webinars. So please
Yeah.
keep your eye out.
And can we just let everyone know that today I'm launching a really, really special new project that, because my heart's been aching. We see, you know, online harm has increased 460% over the last few years, 460%. And our kids need screens. They need them for schoolwork, and we need them to be able to connect positively. But the harm that's happening, it's whatever we're doing now is not helping. So I've combined with some of the most amazing humans so that we can create a collective where we're going to be able to navigate some of those things in a very different way so that we can upskill parents, upskill schools, and also know how we can handle those really big emergencies instead of, you know, sometimes it's kind of swept under a mat. So if they want to go check out my, you know, my social page or on my, it's going to be up on my website where it's called Control Shift, and it's got a whole lot of stuff. We're going to upskill teachers to be, so we're going to work through fabulous teachers to be the educators in their schools so they can update kids, they can go in and talk to kids all through the year, they can email parents to let them know a new risk, they can know how to handle things. So I'm really super excited. So I'm doing that with Kira Prendergast, who's my guru for anything tech, but also Brad Marshall, who's a really good friend of mine, who's got this wonderful balanced scientific brain around, you know, unhealthy tech, and then Madeline West. So it's like we were all super worried and we thought, let's come together because there's an urgency today, Belinda. You're absolutely right. And it's the endless fights going on is one thing, but we cannot have any more of our children have to choose to die
Yeah.
because of how awfully, awfully they've been harmed online. We have got to stop it. And the big tech companies, sadly, they just don't care. They don't care what they're doing. So we have to do it from within, and we're going to do it collectively.
I think that's so reassuring for parents to know, because it's an area that comes up in almost all of our visits when we're out at schools. And, you know, being able to tap into, you know, best case resources and tools so that people can feel equipped. So
Totally.
um,
Totally. Yeah.
can't wait to see how that evolves, Maggie. And it's definitely a topic that we want to tackle and support parents over the coming
Oh,
months and ongoing.
well, I'm super excited because, of course, I've got grandchildren,
Yeah.
so my motivation couldn't be any higher, and I'm just anything I can do in that space. And yeah, I think the way we're going to do it is going to make a profound difference because parents are just pulling their hair out, and once a year they can't get enough information. They don't know where to look, and
Yeah.
we've got to not only educate, but we've got to be able to address those things immediately they happen, as soon as possible, to get that awful harmful material down. So
Yeah.
everyone out there, sending you great big Maggie hugs, and remember, just have a cup of tea, eat a Tim Tam, brush off the dust. You've got this.
Oh, well, we love you, Maggie, and thank you so much. It's I could literally, I could talk to you all
Yeah.
night long, but I know you need to go. And so huge thank you from all of us and everybody online. I think all the parents are feeling that little bit more supported, knowing that Maggie's in their corner. So
Yeah, I'm never leaving that corner. And like I said, there's so much of my free stuff out there because I want everybody to be accessible to those things. And yeah, like good enough, remember, 30 to 40%. We can do that.
we can do it. We can
We
do
can
30
do
to
that.
40. Amazing. Thanks so much, Maggie. And
Take
see you
care.
later, everybody. Thank you very much.
Cheers.